All right, it is 1 minute past. We are going to get started. As always, welcome to the Virtual Agent Academy. Before we get started into the main content, just wanted to give you all a reminder to visit our Virtual Agent NLU community. There you'll find the latest in terms of information and guides for Virtual Agent and NLU. You also go there to ask questions, give answers. All of you are experts in Virtual Agent. I just know it. And I know that all of you or a lot of our audience members on the community would appreciate your ability to give answers to those questions that people post. If you're watching on YouTube and if you like what you're seeing, go ahead and click that like or subscribe button down below and then be notified every time we update or upload our Virtual Agent Academy videos to YouTube. As always, all our Virtual Agent Academies are recorded and posted on YouTube, usually within a week after. So feel free to check out all our past academies as well catching up with this one on YouTube on the Now Community channel. The one last reminder before we get started, two reminders. Number one, on your reminder emails, I've now included a link at the bottom of that email to the Virtual Agent Academy community page. So if you're curious on what's coming the next community, those topics are posted on the community in that community page, usually within a week before the academy. So take a look at that. Check out your reminder emails for that link. And the last thing is knowledge. Knowledge is coming up, K22. We have two dates, 4 sites, either May 11th and 12th or May 25th to 26th. Check out, I'm sure, check out our knowledge site and sign up. Cool. So today we're going to talk about how to send a virtual agent notification via Flow Designer for an expiring asset. And so this is going to cover a lot of ground, but the use case is super cool. We're going to show you how to, what it looks like and how to build it. With me today is special guest speaker, Tricia Cornish. Tricia, do you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Certainly. Hi, everyone. I am a senior advisory solutions consultant here at ServiceNow. I work with Victor on demonstrating the solutions within the virtual agent, predictive intelligence, and performance analytics.
Awesome. Thanks, Tricia. Let's go ahead and get started. Here's our agenda, brief, one single slide, and then we're going to go into the nitty-gritty build phase and then wrap up with Q&A. If you have any other questions, feel free to use the Q&A button on Zoom, not the chat button, although we do read that, but the Q&A button for sure we take a look at, we monitor. So with that, Tricia, take it away.
Thanks, Victor. All right, today we are going to move quickly through the configuration of proactive notifications. I'm going to start with enabling notifications. This seems to be the setup that usually catches me in my different demonstration instances. So I'm going to show you first how we enable notifications within chat setup, and I'm going to show you the new San Diego interface for that configuration. Then we're going to identify our use case, our expiring assets, and where I'm storing that data in my demonstration instances are going to be in the hardware table. So I'm going to identify that table and the column that's going to act as my event for my trigger. Most of this configuration is actually done in Flow Designer. So I'll review the action that's required for the custom notification trigger, and then we'll go through the Flow Designer flow. And then finally, we'll wrap up with the virtual agent provider notifications, which are the standard configuration for notifications within the virtual agent today. We're just starting this process from the flow. So Victor, next slide, and we will get started. Okay, great. I'm going to share my screen.
Go for it. You can just there you go.
All righty. And first, let's talk about what we want to see. So when we're talking about proactive notifications with the virtual agent, we really do want to reach out to those users who are not necessarily in the virtual agent. So here on my left side within Teams, I'm looking at Beth's Teams instance where she's communicating back and forth with me on a software instance. And then over here, I'm monitoring Mary and Eric talking together. And boom, I have notifications in both of these that my teams have received notification that it's time to get a new laptop. So they were working elsewhere in their third-party messaging apps, and I got a notification that it's time to get a new laptop. So Beth can start this process and really just initiate my replacement laptop conversation here. And Bud is going to do the same thing. Okay, so this is a standard virtual agent topic. And so now, how did we get that? Well, let's go into our setup. Okay, so our first step in this process that I just want to make sure everyone's aware of is our notifications. We just want to make sure it's turned on. In San Diego, we have a whole new conversational interface. And so just to recap really quickly on the conversational interfaces settings on the home, we can now turn on notifications here on use notifications. And additionally, if we're using third-party messaging apps, we want to make sure that we're enabling the notifications for our users. So we'll want to turn that on as well. And so ensuring that first it's turned on at the system level, and then turning it on for our messaging apps. And then of course, our users who have enabled notifications is the first part. This is the step that usually gets me, but I just want to make you all aware of that first step process. Okay, the next step is, of course, our flow designer. Actually, we are going to look at the table first for our hardware. So here, if I go to my LM hardware dot list, and I have it shortcutted, but I'm just looking at all the assets associated to my users. No, we do have it over here. So these are the users that have assets that are retiring. Now, this is just a standard column that I'm using that I've populated for my demonstration purposes. So you can see that Mary, Beth, and Bud all have assets that are retiring. If I take out my filter, of course, I can see other dates. So it's definitely time sensitive, time-based, doesn't hit everybody at the same time. And I'm going to pick specific values within this table to trigger my notification. So not just a scheduled retirement, but that it's a computer, that it's in use, and that it's assigned to one of my end users. All righty. So that's our second step, which is this is what I want to act on. And now let's go to my flow designer. Oh, I have it in my favorite. So let's open my flow. All righty. So right here at the top, I have a flow for check for asset retirement. This is really where the magic happens, but we have a couple of steps that I want to touch on before we dig into the flow. When I'm looking at my check for asset retirement, my trigger is going to happen daily at 7:30 in the morning Pacific time. I have my lookup actions. And before we continue in each of these, I've actually created a custom actionable notification. This event trigger for asset check is actually a custom action. So for today's demonstration, I'd like to show that first, and then we will come back and complete this flow. So in my actions, I am going to open the action notification, my trigger an event for an asset check. And since my ITSM virtual agent notifications don't include custom actions, this is why I have to create this. So here in my script step, I have two inputs. And these two variables are key to getting all of this working. So I have my variables for my hardware records and for my event string. And in my script step that I'll need to add as one of my inputs, I am going to incorporate these variables. And here within this script, I am going to call out in this event queue these specific inputs for action over in my flow. So I had one of my colleagues who are really knowledgeable in Flow Designer assist me in building this. And so I'm just going to pause for a moment to let you catch this. But this is pretty much the flow to start the process. Now over here in my flow, I've started with my trigger. And then, of course, I've created my actions. And my actions are going to be my lookup records, which are a global action. I'm going to identify my table. And then, of course, I have my specific conditions. And my specific conditions are what we talked about when I just showed you my table. My scheduled retirement is not empty. It's time-based. It's between yesterday and the end of next month. So before May 31st. And the state is in use. And then for each item in my hardware records action, I am going to call that custom action that we just created. So in this trigger for an event, and this should be displaying in a moment, we have this actionable notification that now is available because I created my action first. I'm going to retrieve for each of my variable records for each item. I'm going to call this event. Now, this I actually can identify in advance of setting up this registered event. So I named this event, and I'm going to copy this, and this is going to be an event that I'm going to register in a moment. So not yet done here, but I just want to make sure that we have our daily trigger, our lookup, and then our event. Now, at this point, when I have my flow completed, of course, I can run the test and see what is going to be found from my flow. So even if I haven't yet completed my virtual agent notifications, I can see if my flow design is going to be successful. I can see the records that are going to be retrieved and if I have success or errors. So that's the first step. I'm going to stop there and make sure that we're good so far on our flow. It was successful. We found our 3 records from our hardware table. I think we're ready to go. All right, let's go now to my event registry. And my event registry is, I've shortcut it, but it is in my system, I'm getting to my menu options so I can call this out for you specifically. It's under my system policy, events, and then registry. So if I go, I'm on, even though I have it favorited, policy, and then my events, and then my registry. And so here, what I can look for is the register. This is where I'm going to actually create the registered event. And I'm going to make this specific to my hardware table. So this matches the same name that I defined for my triggered event in my flow designer. I'm going to identify that it's fired by my flow designer, and this is just my proactive event. So my registered event here becomes the bridge between my virtual agent provider notification and my flow. Okay, critical step here. Now let's go into our actionable notifications. So here, I'm going to go to my system notification. And I'm going to go down to my provider submenu and choose notifications. And here is where I can configure my virtual agent notifications, but now I'm having it triggered by my flow. So let's go ahead and search for, I'm going to filter out those that are not specific to an event. So I can pull up the very specific one that's for my asset surrender date notification. And we're going to review this configuration. So here's my asset surrender date notification. It's tied to my hardware table. It's triggered by an event, and this is the event. I can search through my system registry and find my event name that's specific to this table that I had associated in my flow design. I have no conditions here. My conditions are actually defined in the flow, so I can leave this as is. The recipient in the field is going to be my assigned to. And now we just go through our virtual agent configuration. First thing we're going to do is we are going to set up content for this notification. And what we want to do when we're adding our content is identifying that this is our provider content, and we are going to choose our virtual agent content chat. So we are choosing the chat option for our virtual agent content. And when I define my chat content, I'm going to identify the card. I'm going to identify simple. I chose a record card. It's specific to the table. And here are the fields I'm going to display: my name, the scheduled retirement date, the configuration name. I'm going to dot walk to the name field from the configuration item. I'm going to give it a heading that's a little bit more user-friendly than you have a new notification. And I'm going to indicate what the process is. And so that's the first step of this 3-step process, identifying our provider content. Now we're going to identify our action. This is where we tie our content to our virtual agent topic. If I click into my new provider action, really all I'm doing is associating my published virtual agent topic to my content. So I can search from my published topics and see that here. And the third and final step is to link this action to my content. And so here in this third action, when I click new, I'll have the ability to connect my replacement laptop action. Remember, that has my virtual agent topic to my content. This has my card. All righty. So those are the two pieces. We have our flow designer, which is initiating our process. And then we have the execution of the actual notification occurring here. The great thing is that I can not only test my flow, but I can also see how this test is working within my provider notification. So I actually have 2 points where I can verify if the process is working successfully. If I click into my notification execution, I can see perhaps what is working, and if there is something that is not set up. For instance, I did have a couple of issues when I was testing this out, that it wasn't picking up the right provider notification. I was able to assess that here. And so that would be the process. And then, of course, to tie it together, if I go back to my flow designer, and I don't want to wait until 7:30 tomorrow morning, I can go ahead and run this test. And let's go ahead and go back to our users, and we should get another notification. Need to move I think Mary should get one in here. Or we troubleshoot it. We figure out why it doesn't work. Why it doesn't work on the next trigger. Well, let's see. We have 3 records. And then let's go back to our executions and refresh. It was 67 when I started the demo. Now we have our 3 notifications here. So perhaps what is missing? And they might be in conversation or they might be in process. So I can troubleshoot what's going on here. So, and that's the process. What questions do we have? I do see a question in the Q&A.
Yeah, hi, Tricia. So yeah, we have one question back to your action in the flow. So
Yes.
record and event seem to be inputs on the actual notification action on the flow. Where does the action field come from, though?
On my on here, I'm gonna drag this over from my input variables into the value. So I'm going to define this action first, and then in my flow, it becomes available here in my actions as an option to choose.
Got it. Yeah, and I think someone also said in the chat on the actual flow when you're triggering the action.
Yes.
Awesome. And yeah, like you, I bet you the notification will fire the moment you sign off this webinar. That happens to me all the time.
I'm glad it worked when we started, but yes, I think it might be because we're mid-topic. So yes, your actionable notification becomes available here once you have it defined. So
yeah. Another question, in this particular example, do the notifications expire if someone doesn't respond, or does the user continue to receive a notification until they respond?
Oh, great question. They continue to read. If they type show notifications, it will be available for them to act on later.
Yeah.
So if I go back to my user, and we will start this process for Eric. I actually, Eric might, I can do show notification, and if he had an actionable notification, it would be available to be viewed.
Yeah. So just to hone in on that point, we
Oh, there
won't.
we go. I wasn't showing Mary's right window. There is Mary's notification. She was chatting with Eric.
Nice. Yeah, I was just gonna say, to hone in on that point, we don't ping the user constantly until they answer. It's just it pings once, and then they can always go back to it if they haven't acted on it yet.
Right. So I'm choosing Slack because I can have three different users. I have Eric in green, I have Mary in pink, and I have Bud as a third user so that we can see who does and who doesn't get the notifications. So, and yeah, we can type show notifications if Mary perhaps missed this or it expired.
Yeah. And then Susan follows up with a quick follow-up. So the daily 7:30 a.m. trigger, someone also checks whether a user has already been notified, or or can you speak to that 7:30 a.m. trigger or where that comes in?
I just picked. I'm sorry. Could you repeat that question? I didn't hear the beginning of that. I just picked a time in the day.
Yeah, she just says, so the daily 7:30 a.m. trigger, someone also checks whether a user has already been notified. I don't think that's
Oh,
what the 7:30 is for.
no. It's just this trigger would fire. There is no validation in my demo flow that the user's already been notified. It's pretty much just one way out. Just it's not until my hardware records are either updated so that they're beyond the May 31st value. This flow is going to fire when these conditions are met. And so if say Mary acted and got a replacement laptop, of course, she would not get those notifications any longer. I might want to add an additional condition or an additional step so that once the process is started for a user, they no longer receive notifications.
Cool.
That's not part of this flow. Did that make sense?
It did to me. I hope that it did to Susan. She meant the daily 7:30 a.m. somehow also checks, not someone. So yeah, I think you addressed that.
Okay.
Awesome. So going down through the list, plenty of questions just started popping up random, which is great. So Roxanne asked, so the proactive notification is a one-time thing and subsequently the user needs to look for the notification?
If actually, if Mary Smith wasn't on Slack, she would get the notification tomorrow. It's not just a one-time thing. This would be a daily occurrence until these conditions are no longer met, or until I added additional conditions.
Right, because the asset will still be expired until she renews the asset.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's see. A question popped up in the chat window. One of the users in the virtual agent needs to type hi to start another conversation in order to receive a notification, or should that come in anyway?
No, the proactive notification would come in anyway. So when I first started my demo, it was just the service. I just received the card while Beth is my MS Teams user, was conversing with other users on software problems. So there was nothing for Beth to do to start the virtual agent topic.
Awesome.
She did not have to start. She did not have to type hi in this instance.
Yeah, exactly. I think if Beth wanted to go back to her notifications, yes, she can type hi to. She doesn't even have to type hi to start VA. She can just type show notifications to review notifications if she remembers she got one but ignored it at that previous time. So yeah, that's what Trisha was showing earlier. Um, okay, we have one involved question and one short. I'm going to do the short question first, and then we'll go circle back to the involved question. The short question by Chris. If I recall, in Quebec, if notifications piled up, it seemed like you needed to open each one individually to get rid of it. Is that still the case, or is there a way to clear all notifications?
Victor, do you want to take that one? Because in my right now, I'm showing this in Rome, and I did have on Mary's, I did have a couple of extra notifications. So they are coming in. Let's see, show notifications.
Yeah,
So
I don't know. I've never. I
they're
don't.
coming in. I think you still have to clear your notification.
Yeah, like one by one. I don't think there's a clear all notifications button, although that'd be kind of useful.
Yeah, and so right now, Bud has a couple, and I would have to clear the notifications individually.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, sorry, Chris. I don't. I think it's still the case. You still need to react to each one individually to clear them. We don't have a clear all button like you'd have on mobile. If you have any, if I saw a hand raised, if you have a question, just feel free to type it straight into the Q&A. We'll read it. Samuel asks, can we go back to the use case? We had the overview slide, and I can share it too if you prefer, Trisha, of what the steps were. Otherwise, I can share.
Yeah, if you could share it, that would be
Let
great.
me go back to that. So, so for those who joined in the middle here, what Tricia basically did was build a notification to fire in Virtual Agent if someone's asset expired. So if your MacBook is or your PC is like 3 to 4 years old, and the expiration date hits on your asset table, that flow looks that up and fires a trigger, and that flow is encapsulated in an event. And if you all remember, we've built notifications in VA before in Academy. You could either do it off a record change or an event. This one's an event, and that event, based on the flow, triggers when the asset is expired, and it sends a notification via Virtual Agent to users saying, "Hey, your MacBook's getting old," or "Hey, your MacBook's expired," or maybe, "Hey, your software's warranty's expired. Do you want to do something about it?" And then we linked it to an action, which would basically run a Virtual Agent topic. So that was the overall steps, the overall use case, and here the overview of the steps. So I hope that tied everything up nicely, Tricia.
I think so. Well, does anyone else have any questions? Samuel, did that answer your question?
Yep, I believe it did.
Okay. I don't think we have any other questions in the chat or in the Q&A. And look at our time, right on time.
Yeah, we are right on time. So thank you so much, Tricia, again for presenting. This was really cool, really useful. Hey, people got 2 academies in one. They got a Flow Designer Academy and they got a Virtual Agent Academy in the span of 30 minutes. So the recording for this will go onto YouTube in the Now Community playlist. Or if you just search ServiceNow Community, it will, or ServiceNow Virtual Agent, the playlist will come up. They'll be posted there within the week, within 7 days. Now that I have access to upload to community channel, I do that much faster. And yeah, we will see you again in 2 weeks. The topic for in 2 weeks will show up in the community page for Virtual Agent Academy within the week. And I will see you all later. Don't forget to view this on YouTube afterwards. Tell your friends and family, or at least anyone who's interested in a Virtual Agent, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Aaron.